Like myself, I specialize in multifamilies. And not everybody knows how to do that or knows what your goal is as an investor. So we're going to get into it and see really what the differences will be and why I believe it's important for everybody buying their first property to have an agent on their side.
Yeah, and I'm just going to just crush all that. So. Welcome to Uncommon, a state of mind where we debate different ways to leverage your next investment to create time freedom, legacy impact, and generational wealth in order to live that uncommon life. But in order to do that, you must be uncommon. My name is Joey, aka Mr. J Mays.
Hey, you know what it is? I'm AD, also known as AD, the Fly Realtor.
Yep. So, actually, it's pretty cool because right now we're actually going to go through a series of, how to actually buy a multifamily real estate property. So we're actually starting a series step by step on how to buy a multifamily property as your first investment, right? So pretty much after this is done, you should know exactly how to go ahead and get into your first investment if you're knocking out or trying to get into a multifamily. Okay, step by step. So make sure y'all pay attention. And stay tuned, man. It's gonna
Stay tuned because, like Joey said, it's a series. So this is episode 1, and there will be 2, 3, 4, 5,
something like that.
And then maybe more, maybe less, but stay tuned and find out.
So me personally, I'm gonna just be poking holes in everything that this man says. So,
hey, you know what's crazy? Because the first thing is, step 1 would actually be find your agent. But here's the crazy thing: my man Joey's like, there really isn't a use for agents in today's day and age. And see, that's issue number 1. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, especially you beginners who think that you don't need an agent. So, like, we really are going to get into it. And honestly, as a deal finder, as a realtor myself, I do get it because it's a little oversaturated with a lot of people who don't know what they're doing and they don't have the right guidance to figure out what to do or how to do it. Most agents out here are real good at, helping you find that single family home, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and I'm going to live in there for the rest of my life. That's not that difficult. No disrespect to anybody who does that. That's not that hard. But when we're trying to buy property with an investor mindset or for specific reasons and purposes, you do need a little bit more specializing in order to do that. Like myself, I specialize in multifamilies. And not everybody knows how to do that or knows what your goal is as an investor. So we're going to get into it and see really what the differences will be and why I believe it's important for everybody buying their first property to have an agent on their side.
Yeah, and I'm just going to just crush all that.
So first step is, like I said, find that agent. But like, I wouldn't say step 1, but before finding that agent, try to get a good idea of what kind of strategy you're looking for, what you think you want to do. Do a little research. 1 is good because finding any good agent, it's a little more difficult linking with a good agent. But if the agent sees that you are committed to this and you've already done some homework on your own, they're a lot more willing to guide and lead you through that process. That's 1, because no agent wants to. It's a tough business and you only make money on commissions.
Okay.
No agent wants to spend time on somebody who doesn't even seem like they're going to follow through.
That makes sense.
Right.
So that's probably the only thing we're going to agree on today. Right. The fact that you need to do your own research and understand, to be honest, if you're going to go the route of not having an agent, research is key regardless. So like doing your own research, your own due diligence, and making sure you know the strategy that you want to go ahead and follow and pursue is huge.
Right. So my first reason for why you should have an agent on your side, especially with your first property, is for experience and expertise. All right. So agents, good agents, good realtors, they have specialized knowledge with a specific area or property types, based on what they work on. So you're going to need that experience and specialized knowledge for that market, whatever market it is. I don't care if it's a big market. I don't care if it's a small market. It could be Los Angeles, Middle America. It could be the South. Anywhere in this country, you are going to want somebody who has knowledge of that area and knows what's going on. Like, for instance, at any given moment, you can ask a good multifamily agent, like, okay, what's the cap rate in this area? And if it's an area they operate in, they kind of have something to give you. Like, what's the cap rate around here?
I have no idea.
He has no idea, but he's not supposed to know.
Hold on.
Why would he know?
Hold on. Don't,
That's an example.
that
What?
was an attack.
No, it's not an attack. It's an example. I didn't even mean to come for you.
So-
I just wanted it to be clear that, yeah, this isn't common knowledge. Like, good agents aren't just operating with stuff that everybody knows.
This is very true, but the internet is a hell of a drug, y'all. You can go on the internet, you can find systems and look into what these cap rates are. You can look into like what a cap rate is. If you do your own research and you're serious about being an investor, these are terms that you're going to pick up on your own. And another thing that you can do, especially if you really want to go down the route of not having an agent, there's a ton of Facebook groups, real estate groups that you can be a part of where you can learn this knowledge. You can be the person who understands that market. You can be the person who knows what those cap rates are. You know what I'm saying? So like to say that he's necessary for that, it's a reach.
Well, for one, that's the first example.
Oh, okay.
That's the first reason. But two, I was going to save this for later on, but since you brought it up, Joey's out here talking about, oh, you could go research, you could go do this. One thing you guys don't know about Joey is Joey's going to do his homework, okay? Joey's going to research and Joey's going to know everything he needs to know about that thing or that topic or subject. But not everybody has the time and convenience to do that. So that was one of my later points, but he brought it up, so let's go. So yes, time and convenience. So they're searching for properties, scheduling vendors, inspections, speaking with the seller and or the seller's agent. These are all things that the average person, especially if you have a 9 to 5, it's not going to be that simple to do. Not to mention, when you get off work, a lot of people aren't operating anymore. You know what I mean? So let's say, for instance, there needs to be an inspection done on an occupied unit. A lot of these people, like I actually just dealt with some difficult tenants that I'm trying to look inside the unit, but they don't want you in there when they're going to be at home.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a job, you get off at 5. Well, guess what? 75% or however many people all get off at 5 too. So they're going to be home and they're like, yeah, you know what? No, I don't want to give you permission to enter. And I know I said you have permission to enter, but I'm not doing it today. Okay. There's nothing you could do about that. Okay. You know,
So, I mean, that sucks, but you could schedule ahead. You can schedule ahead and be like, look, I want to get into the property. I want to see the property and inspect the property. Set a couple of schedules, some soft schedules, some hard schedules, and make that work. Eventually, you're going to get in there.
Eventually, you might eventually, but it goes back to that time and convenience. So why is that something I would want to do if I'm going to have to wait for an eventually? You know, I'm looking for somebody to come represent me and be able to get in there, get the info we need, get the pictures we need, and get out. And you might need to do this at 9 a.m. You might need to do it at 12. You might need to do it at 5. You might need to do it at 8 p.m., you know, whatever works, whatever you can figure out. But do you really want to have to take away from your day and the duties and responsibilities you already have to go and do this? Like, not everybody is just suited to really do this on their own. So that's a big thing, that time and convenience factor. It's like anything. You can represent yourself in court. So why don't you do that? Like, oh, I can go on the internet. All the laws are on the internet, so I could go on the internet and figure out how to build a defensive case in court, in the court of law. It's like, nah, dude. Like, who's trying to do all that? You better get that lawyer and make life easy. It's the same thing. Like, I don't care what anybody says. You can't convince me otherwise. It's really the same thing.
I mean, a lawyer, that's a lot. Because when it comes to being
Same,
a lawyer,
same.
like there's a lot. So let's come
Same.
on.
Same.
But okay, I do hear him on when it comes to convenience for sure. If you don't mind inconveniencing yourself for a little bit just to get more information on the property that you plan to spend a lot of time on, that you plan to spend a lot of money on, put that time aside and go do that. You know what I mean?
So then when we go on from there, I'm looking at network and connections. So this is important because, all right, everybody, like maybe not the average person has access to the MLS, but you can get access to the MLS. To be honest, most of what you see on Zillow is actually coming from the MLS, these sites. So even though it might not be updated as quickly as the MLS is, even if you don't use those sites, a lot of people can get access to the MLS. That's no big
I'm
secret.
glad that you said that because I was about to come.
No, that's not a big deal. Everybody can find that info. But what you can't find, you may not have that contact list of people who know or have access to properties that aren't on the market.
Okay.
You know, for instance, there's times where people hit me up or I get emails about properties that are going to be on the market in 2 weeks. And it's like, well, take a look, because if we don't have to put it on the MLS, we're not going to. This is technically an off-market deal. The average Joe isn't just out here getting access to off-market deals. It does take time to build a list of people who are going to feed you these deals. This is part of what I do regularly. I nurture my contacts and I stay in communication with them so that they feed me deals and they start sending me stuff. And that's something I'm actually really trying to get better at, because I want my clients to also have access to this database of deals that are never going to be seen by the general public. That's a big deal. So on top of that, and you have more opportunities to find the right property, because I'm constantly in contact. Other realtors are constantly in contact with other agents in their field. So they're always coming across deals. They're always coming across listings. And then also you get a better idea of which properties sellers are willing to come down on that price. You know, if you're just looking at the MLS, you're not always going to be able to know, like, okay, this is the opportunity to get a better price, or this is the opportunity to get a better price. But if I'm talking to agents and I'm talking to other representatives, I have a better idea of, okay, maybe the seller will be willing to budge. They're of course not going to give me everything the seller's dealing with or working with, but I can get a better idea sometimes than the average person.
Okay, so with that, what I'll say is like, okay, you will have pocket listings. So that's what those are called, pocket listings, that you may have access to, that you probably build relationships with. But the average Joe, they're not going to be as good at it, but they can get a couple of different sources to kind of show them a couple of off-market deals. Me personally, when I was looking into flipping houses, I got into contact with a bunch of wholesalers, and all these wholesalers had properties that were off-market that were looking to be bought up. You know what I mean? What I say is, like, there's a lot of things that you can do as the average person that also, realtors can do. You can do a lot of these things.
Sorry, if I may, like, wholesalers, I love you guys. I really do. I work with some of you. I got no issues, but wholesalers don't have a fiduciary responsibility to the principal.
Okay.
That's important, because as an agent,
So can you explain what a fiduciary responsibility is?
in layman's terms, it really means my job is to protect your interests at all costs, no matter what. As an agent, as somebody who's licensed, that's what I signed up for. And not just myself, I really feel like a lot of agents out there really do take that, seriously, and take that responsibility in hand with their, day-to-day operations. Of course, there's some out there who are a little sketchy, but I really do take that responsibly. And wholesalers don't have this same duty. That's why you see a lot of situations where people feel like they were screwed over by a wholesaler,
Okay.
or a wholesaler may have withheld something, or they didn't have to go deep and really figure out what's going on with that property because that lack of fiduciary responsibility. So I'm not saying that they're not a good avenue or a good route, but for our beginners, either you're buying your first property or you're buying your first property for investment purposes. Wholesalers might be a little tricky. I'll just be careful, okay? I don't want to say you should or you shouldn't. I just be careful with
Okay,
that.
well, I can say that not every agent has your best interest at heart. You know what I'm saying? You might have to, just as you'd have to fish for specific wholesalers to work with, you still have to fish for the right agent to work with as well.
Def.
Uh,
I mean, I do think that's important. It really is. You're right. You are right on that point.
Yeah.
Like, you are gonna have to find the right agent. But for instance, you know, that's why it's important to do at least that minimal amount of research, because when you do that and you're shopping for agents, you're interviewing agents, that's when you go and you're like, all right, like I have questions 1, 2, and 3.
I have a question for you, just because we're on this topic. So say we're in that position. What are the best questions to ask an agent in that exact scenario? What's the best questions to ask that agent if you're looking to buy your first multifamily property?
All right, so like question 1, you can ask, "Oh, do multifamily properties?" But that might not be the best question. A better question, because that's a yes or no question. A better question would be, "What kind of properties do you typically work with?" You know what I mean? So that way, if I tell you like, "Oh yeah, like single family buyers, like that's my specialty," or I do fix and flips, you know, exactly. And then that already lets you know, let me start cutting this person off my list, you know? So that's a good question there. You know, other questions such as, like I said, cap rate, like, oh, well, what's the cap rate in this area? If you researched that already on your own, then, and you hear what this person says, either they're going to tell you something that's right, or it's right in line with what you thought it was, or they're going to tell you something that's different. If it's different, go back and do a little bit more research or ask other people that you may trust who are in that industry. Because either you're wrong or he's wrong. And if he's wrong, that's not your guy. Right. So things like that. So questions along those lines, you really want to ask those kind of questions. And then also really maybe questions like what areas or what locations do you really work with? Because LA's so different where, you know, it could be the same zip code, but different sides of that zip code do different things. So you really want to get a good idea for like where they specialize in or how much they're ingrained in a specific area.
Yeah, I hear that. So one thing that I do want to talk about, especially when you talk about cutting out the agent, like for me, I'm like, okay, well, I want to be in direct communication with this person because now we can actually negotiate and get into terms on our own, and we don't need to, play the telephone game with a third party when it comes to negotiations.
That's true. But the thing about that is that, again, especially for our beginners, one thing that happens is beginners get emotional. You know, like they get emotional, we get in our feelings, and sometimes we get upset. And the agent, they act as a buffer between you and the BS that's coming on the other side, because sometimes it's like that, and sometimes it is some BS. So that's one. Two, you want to be able, like as an agent, I can go ask for something outrageous from the other agent or from the seller, and I could just blame it on my principal. Be like, look, that's what I get what you're saying, but this guy over here, the guy I'm representing, that's what he wants. Yeah, take it or leave it. But if you're representing yourself, they're going to try and finagle you a lot more and get you to where they're at, especially if they have an agent themselves. Because a lot of sellers are smart enough to understand that they can get top dollar if they have an agent. But if you don't have an agent, then you're leaving this seller with all of this power that you may not have access to.
I don't know about all that. I mean, depending if you have a little bit of, like I said, if you've done your research and you're connected with the right type of groups, you'll know how to have conversations with sellers. I guess I can't say that for everybody. So if you are the person who wants to kind of dig in and you want to get into this investment, then of course you're going to have a little bit of knowledge on negotiation and negotiation tactics in order to go ahead and deal with sellers.
No, definitely, definitely. Yeah. And again, it's not a one size fits all thing. Like there are some people out there who can develop the skills, develop the knowledge, and go out there and do it themselves. Actually, probably a lot of us can, but like where I'm emphasizing on the beginner. So if you don't own any property, or if the only property you own is your home that you live in that has no investment purposes, I really think it might be good for you to get a realtor, because also they're able to teach you things that you didn't even know to look up. You know what I mean? Like they would know specific areas that may have higher property taxes, or where property taxes tend to increase more rapidly than other areas in town, or things of that sort. Or for instance, somebody I remember one of my friends was sending me homes. He doesn't flip or anything, but he was thinking about getting into flips, and he sent me a home that's like this far away from the freeway. It's right by the freeway, and I was like, it could work, but the comps you're sending aren't by the freeway, so your property isn't going to sell like those other ones. But if I was looking for deals for him, I wouldn't have even sent him that property unless I was going to compare it to other properties right by the freeway. You know what I'm saying? But he's out here looking on his own, and it's like, yeah, a property could be half a mile away, but that half a mile away from the freeway is going to make a big difference when it comes to reselling that property. So things like that it's not just something to look up regularly. It's usually trial by error, but I don't know how many errors you want to leave yourself susceptible to on your first time investing. So that's a big thing to me.
Okay. So let's get into the real meat and potatoes on why anybody would be thinking to do this by themselves rather than getting an agent, and it's the cost. Like after the house sells, we're giving up 2 to 3% to that agent. And if that's a $500,000 house, that's $15K straight out the back, not even including closing costs. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of a big deal.
I mean, it seems like a big deal, but if we're talking about buyers specifically, buyers don't pay for agents. Agents get paid out of the sale of that home. So if a home costs $500,000, all you do is you pay your $500,000, of course, closing costs and things of that sort. But typically, you're just getting that loan for $500,000. Then the agent gets paid out of the proceeds. So technically, the seller is paying the agent. Buyers don't pay agents. That's a big misconception in the industry, that a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't have money for an agent. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't need money for an agent. You just need somebody who, like I said, agents only get paid out of commission. So that's why it is important to show an agent that you are serious about doing what you say you're going to do, because a lot of good agents, especially real experienced agents, they're not going to spend or waste too much time on somebody who seems like it's going to be a lost cause.
Yeah.
And it sounds mean, it sounds rude, but I get it. Like if being an agent is tough, dude, it's tough. And it's tough out here, bro. And it's eat what you kill. And you don't have time to wait for that dead weight. You're out here moving on to whoever is actually looking to close. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would be a perfect candidate to be somebody's client, because you're dedicated, you're focused, you're serious, and you know how to take disappointment. You feel me? There's people out there who like, oh, as soon as like their offer gets denied, they're like, oh God. And it's like, dude, like, we're probably gonna have to put in 5 more offers before one gets accepted. You better relax.
Fuck up.
Right. It's like, hey, reel it in, dude, reel it in, because we got a journey, all right? So that's important for real. But lastly, I guess, well, I got 2 more points for you. So market knowledge, all right? Agents stay up to date with market knowledge and what's the trends going on in their areas that they pretty much farm. So that's really important, because if you go online, you might get pretty recent data, but it might not be as recent as like right now. You know what I'm saying? That's real important because you can start making decisions based on what you think is accurate and current, and it's not. So that agent is either able to let you know that you can get a better deal, or the agent's able to let you know that you're detached from reality based on what's going on. Usually the latter. So that's real important, that market knowledge, because I'm in these MLS streets every day. Like, and I'm looking up properties on the market, looking properties under contract. I'm looking up properties that just sold. So like, this is really, it comes out of me out of nowhere. Like, it's just what it is because I'm staying up to date with those market trends.
Yeah.
That leads me to my very last point. There are a lot more, but for the sake of time, the very last point is guidance and support. Buying a property, especially for beginners, can be a very complex, emotional, strenuous process. I'm really not trying to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not trying to paint a pretty picture. Like, it's tough. It's really not a simple thing all the time. It may get more simple as you build up experience, but it's not an easy thing for everybody to do right away. So having that agent there for initially the guidance, direct that boat properly. That's what you want. Whenever I come into a situation where it's like when something's wrong with the car, there's what I think is wrong with the car, and then there's what the mechanic says.
Right.
I'm gonna tend to lean towards what that mechanic says. I may get a second or third opinion, but I'm gonna let the expert do what the expert does, because that's an emotional thing. I don't want my car messing up when I'm driving. So that's another thing. But then also that support. So like I said, like, people get emotional, people get sad about not winning this property they thought was the property, but that support does help people, where it's like, look, sometimes agents have to sometimes be emotional support for people and let them know, like, look, this is common. You don't win every offer, and sometimes offers come back. Like, I've had people tell me no and then come back, hit me up later like, hey, is your guy still interested? So, you know what I mean? But like, let that agent just be there for you, for that support, that guidance, to help steer the boat properly, instead of trying to figure that out on your own.
So, I mean, the only thing that I can say to that is if you are in groups, in real estate investing groups, a lot of real estate investing groups have agents in them that are looking to invest and not actually like really be on the agent side. So you can have that support within different groups that you're in, especially if you guys are all putting in deals together, and you can also have that knowledge as well.
Well, that's the hybrid approach, though. So are you saying that pretty much you invest with that person?
So it's like, in real estate groups, it's either you're investing with them, or maybe you guys have separate deals, but you just ask for like more expertise from the agent.
Okay.
In that group.
Yeah, that could work, but 99.99% of the agents aren't just going to be willing to continuously give out info if they don't have no, what's the term I'm looking for? No piece of the pie. You know what I mean? So I was going to say, like, if it's a team of people investing together and the agent is one of those people, that could work, because then that's more of an equity deal, like, you got stake in the game. But if it's a situation where it's like, oh, and people, all my friends and family who hit me up and aren't trying to use me as their agent, I love you guys, but it's annoying, not just to me, but to every agent out there. Like, oh, like, let me ask you all these questions, but I'm gonna go to someone else to buy my property. Like, you must be out of your mind. Family friendly show. But you must be out of your mind to think I do this to make money. Like, this is how I feed my family. You think I'm gonna waste my time continuously to give you this information that people, I represent people who get this information from me. So yes, that could work, but I wouldn't trust the long-term, viability of just asking somebody.
Okay. So actually, to wrap this up, honestly, I'm poking holes in everything, but if you are going to use an agent, you should hit up AD. the Fly Realtor.
That's right. That's right. AD
time.
Fly Realtor, you know what it is.
So honestly, like another thing is really like it takes a special type of person to be like, okay, I want to do this investment. I want to get all the knowledge. I then want to find the team and the support to go and do this. Then I want to go and execute that. If that's not what you're about, if you're just like a doctor, if you're like a lawyer, if you're just somebody who has a lot of money and you don't want to put in all that work, to be honest, you don't even need to have a whole lot of money. You just probably don't want to put in all that work. You want to go ahead and just defer to a specialist who knows what they're doing. So for that, you're going to have to pay some cash, but I mean, it's definitely worth it if it's worth saving time and getting that expert knowledge without having to engulf yourself in that knowledge yourself.
Most Def, I'm glad you said that. It's true because, like I said, if you have a regular job, you have kids, or whatever you got going on in life, it might not be conducive for you to spend excessive amounts of time trying to do this. It might be good to have someone on your side out there doing it for you. That's really what it is.
Yep.